Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am your spaced out host. I'm Dylan. I wish that I was a wizard, but I constantly space out whilst reading books. But for some reason, when it comes to fantasy, I don't space out. I actually am able to pay attention and have a really fantastic time. So I've built my entire personality around fantasy books. And one thing you'll know if you're part of the fantasy community is that the indie book space is blowing up. More people are writing books now than ever. Traditional publishers can't keep up. So many fantastic authors are choosing to publish their own books independently. And as there's so many great books constantly being released, I want to tell you about a few of my favorite indie fantasy series that I think you should really consider checking out, as they are some of the best works in fantasy. These are series that should not be looked down upon because they're not traditionally published. These are great authors, great writers that are just choosing to release their books on their own. And they're all done to the highest, most professional level. There's nothing unprofessional about these books. Today we're going to be covering mostly epic fantasy. We've got 4 series that I've already read and really loved, and 2 series that I haven't read yet but receive a lot of praise and are very well loved in the community. So before we dive into my favorite indie fantasy series, please comment down below what your favorites are, what ones I need to check out next. Make sure you like the video, it really helps, and if you want more, please subscribe. We're going to start off with a top 5 all-time favorite series for myself, and that's The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. This is classic fantasy with modern writing. The Bound and the Broken could be described as if Aragon was written by John Gwynne. We're in a world where 400 years ago, dragon riders ruled the lands. They kept the order between the different countries and kept the peace. But some of the riders felt they were being used by the countries as political servants, and a mage was able to turn them against each other. So this mage was able to put the dragon riders at war against each other and pretty much take over the entire continent, kill most of the dragons. There's only 4 left, and they're all subjugated to him. And he's been ruling with an iron fist for the last 400 years. The dwarves are all hiding away in their mountains, and the elves are all hidden away in their forests. And just as with Aragon, our country boy goes on his hero's journey. He finds his dragon egg and pretty much incites a rebellion. But there is so much more to this story. This rebellion has been brewing for hundreds of years. Now, there have been so many people in this world that have been trying to fight back, but now they've got someone they can all stand behind. And seeing this continent come together is so enthralling. The Bound and the Broken is currently made up of 3 main novels and 3 novellas. The novellas all tell us backstories to certain elements of the story, certain characters, and there's going to be 5 main novels in the series, so the series should finish in the next 2 years. Ryan's a very fast writer. Now, the one warning I give for The Bound and the Broken is in book 1, Ryan was still finding himself as an author, and it's very tropey. It's very similar to Aragon in book 1, but in books 2 and 3, the series really finds itself, it expands, and it becomes its own thing in such an incredible way. I guarantee if you're a fan of John Gwynne, you will love this series. And if you're a bit hesitant about starting, you can read The Fall. It's a novella that takes place 400 years before the main series, so this is the battle where the dragon riders turned against each other. It's 4 chapters, 98 pages of just pure epic brilliance that shows off Ryan's great writing skills. I highly recommend checking this one out and then jumping into Of Blood and Fire, book 1 of the series. Next up, I want to talk about Andy Peloquin, one of my favorite authors at the moment. Andy's written about 45 books at the moment. I've read 5 of his. I've read his Queen of Thieves trilogy, and it has been some of my favorite reading all year. Andy specializes in writing dark fantasy. He's got many series to capture whatever sort of mood you're in. He's most known for his Dark Blade series, which is described as John Wick meets fantasy. And his books are like drugs. They are so addictive. They are very easy to read. As soon as you pick it up, you fly through chapters, you're gripped the whole time. There's always something enthralling, something pulling you back to the page. So you just fly through his books so quickly. The series of his that I'm most familiar with is the Queen of Thieves trilogy that starts off with Child of the Night Guild. This is his darkest series. It's grim, dark fantasy. It's fast paced, and it's got lots of heist themes as we're set in a thief guild. So in the first book of the trilogy, we get to see Viola as she's sold into the guild and then goes through her apprenticeship. So we get to see her age up very quickly and perform a pretty crazy heist to be accepted into the guild. Then in the second book of the trilogy, we get to see her pull off the biggest heist the guild has ever seen. And then in the third book, a rival crime gang is coming to take over her city, and the weight of the city is on her shoulders to stop them from coming in and push them away. I read these books so quickly last month, and I can't wait to jump into Darkblade because I've already read a book that's set in between these 2. It's called Traitor's Fate. We get half of Viola's POV and half of the Hunter's POV, and I just want to hang out with our John Wick assassin over here. So if you're ever looking for a dark fantasy story, just check out Andy. He's got so many series, he will have something for you. Next up, we have A Vengeful Realm by Tim Fasciola. And I just finished reading book one of this completed trilogy last month, and all I can say is wow, my mind was completely blown. This is Game of Thrones meets Russell Crowe's Gladiator. Tim's writing is so beautiful. We've got political fantasy, we've got a gladiator chosen one that has been sent to free all the slaves, but he's been captured, enslaved, sent into the gladiator pits, and is being used by so many different parties as this political mess is shaking down. This kingdom that we're in is on its first monarch. Our king is just holding these two countries together, and there are so many people trying to tear this kingdom apart and go back to war. So if you're looking for Roman gladiator vibes, political fantasy, tons of POVs, Game of Thrones influence, this is the series for you. It's a completed trilogy, and the narration for the audiobook is incredible. And lastly, for the series I've read, let's go to something fun. Let's go to Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman. This is Terry Pratchett meets dystopian sci-fi meets video games. We are in 21st century Seattle, and Carl has just gone outside to get his girlfriend's cat when everyone inside on the entire Earth gets squashed and eliminated. Aliens have come. They're going to mine Earth, but whilst they're doing that, they're also going to run a game show where the human survivors are sent into an 18-level dungeon and are fighting for survival to be some of the last humans left alive. In this dungeon game show, we are trying to make it from dungeon level to dungeon level, and we have access to video game sort of features where you can level up your strength and intelligence and those sorts of things. So it sounds really wacky, but the author is able to keep us invested in the characters and their story and build up a plot outside of the game show where there's a bigger story going on and you're just so hooked. This is an addictive story that will keep your eyes hooked to the page. It's fun, easy, and lighthearted, but it's also serious and has you feeling things. I highly recommend you check out Dungeon Crawler Carl. So lastly, the two recommendations I have for indie fantasy series that I haven't read yet but highly recommend for people based off what I've heard about them are the Echoes Saga by Philip Sequential, which is a 9-book classic fantasy series, and then probably the most known indie fantasy book ever, The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong, and this is a standalone fantasy. So as I haven't read these books, I'm going to read the blurbs to you. The echoes of fate, a prophecy uttered unto the world 1,000 years ago, cannot be denied. Mankind has lorded over the alien for thousands of years, building on the ruins left by the elves, as if it was their birthright. 1,000 years ago, a long time for an immortal race to see the truth of things, a truth has remained unsaid for a millennium. Elves are superior. They are faster, stronger, and connected to the magical realm in a way that man could never grasp. Elaine should return to them. Unaware of the shadow that looms in the east, the 6 kingdoms of man are fractured, unallied, and clawing at each other's gates for more power. This isn't just war set to ravage the land, but a slaughter the world of man cannot hope to survive. Thrown into the heart of this war is a man known by many names, an outlander of the wilds, an assassin, a ranger. Ashes was born 1,000 years ago to a life he doesn't remember. 40 years of brutal training and killing for money has beaten the earliest years of life away, leaving his ties to the oldest of the evils a mystery to all. Okay, I am definitely going to be reading this series very soon. Oh, that's great. And then for the Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. On a mountainside at the edge of the Kaigenese Empire lived the most powerful warriors in the world, superhumans capable of raising the sea and wielding blades of ice. For hundreds of years, the fighters of the Kaigenese Peninsula have held the Empire's enemies at bay, earning their frozen spit of land the name the Sword of Kaigen. Born into the Kisagenese legendary Mustada family, 14-year-old Marmo has known his purpose to master his family's fighting techniques and defend his homeland. But when an outsider arrives and pulls back the curtain on Kaigen's alleged age of peace, Mori realizes he might not have much time to become the fighter he was bred to be. Worse, the empire he was bred to defend may stand on a foundation of lies. Misaki told herself that she left the passions of her youth behind when she married into the Mastahu family. Determined to be a good housewife and mother, she hid away her sword along with everything from her days as a fighter in a faraway country. But with her growing son asking questions about the outside world, the threat of an impending invasion looms across the sea, and her frigid husband grating on her nerves. Misaki finds the fighter in her clawing its way back to the surface. When the winds of war reach the peninsula, will the Mastuda family have the strength to defend their empire, or will they tear each other apart before the true enemies can reach their shores? I don't know about you guys, but those two series just rocketed up my TBR. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you check out some indie fantasy if you haven't already, or if you already have. I hope you can discover some more. I absolutely love all of the series I mentioned today, and I just want them to get more hype. I don't think indie fantasy should be looked down upon. There's so many great series. You just need to know where to start, and I highly recommend these books. Please comment down below your favorite indie series. Make sure you like the video and make sure you subscribe for more. Have a fantastic day, guys.